At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, hand sanitizer was in short supply. Bottles flew off the shelf at record pace, and essential services couldn't get a bottle for love nor money. Suppliers weren't producing quickly enough to help keep up with demand, but thankfully other industries stepped up to help meet this challenge. It wasn't long into the lockdown before we saw brewing companies announce they'd be shifting production from beverages to hand sanitizer. This left me wondering, how easy is it for a company to switch production so quickly? And how will they switch back to normal production? Most importantly, with the pubs now starting to reopen, will we still be able to get gin and tonic this summer?
We're joined by Mick Fairless. He is one of the owners of Speakeasy Gins up there in Lancashire.
Thanks, Mark. Good to hear from you.
Now, quickly, just tell us, just what is the process that you already had in place for your gins?
Well, we started the business about 4 years ago. We make a range of 3 signature gins currently, and we manufacture with a couple of small stills, and we use the immersion technique, whereby we take raw alcohol, effectively boil botanicals in it, and then extract a fraction of the distillate, which we then turn into the finished product gin.
And you said there that you use the alcohol. So what is the connection between all of these gin manufacturers we've heard about getting into hand sanitizer and hand sanitizer? Why do they go together?
It's effectively the licensing, Mark. You need a license in order to handle high-strength alcohol. And at the start of the pandemic, we decided, because our business had dropped off dramatically, that we would make hand sanitizer. And our supporters offered us some cash in order to be able to do it. So we matched that with money from the business, and we've effectively been distributing free of charge right across the UK, but mainly in Lancashire, hand sanitizer to the World Health Organization recipe.
And what sort of organisations needed your hand sanitizer in the Lancashire area?
Well, certainly the local care homes were being very badly serviced. You may remember at the start of the pandemic that the government ministers were saying that care homes had maybe been a little bit neglected. And because of the trouble with supply in the supply chain, they were the last to be getting hold of what's effectively essential product to carry out their day-to-day works. So that was the reason for getting involved with it.
And how did you go about getting hold of all the right components for your hand sanitizer? And you know, had you made it before? If you hadn't, how on earth did you go about coming up with a recipe?
Well, I'm ex-plastics industry, so I actually went to a company that I used to sell raw recycled plastic to. And they said because it was a charitable thing that we were doing, they would sell us at cost bottles. So we haven't had any for about 6 weeks now. We're expecting some very shortly, but it was very challenging getting hold of the packaging. As for the recipe, we went to the World Health Organization, and they publish a number of recipes for use usually in third world emerging countries. But they publish these recipes, so we've utilized WHO recipe number 2, which is effectively alcohol, an emollient in the form of glycerin, and also hydrogen peroxide blended together. Then they recommend that you leave it in the end packaging for 72 hours before you distribute it, just in case there are any spores or microbes or anything in the packaging. And I mean, not that it'll live long in 70% alcohol, but you know, we follow the regulations, make sure everybody's safe.
And is it something that anybody could have done if you could have got hold of the alcohol? Why was it the gin industry that had the ability? Did they need to get special permission?
Yeah, there's licensing that you have to obtain from the HMRC, and also the supply chain helps as well. So our ethanol suppliers for the gin business were more than happy, again at cost. Heyman Kimia, wonderful company, Kimia UK down in Kent. They gave us at cost industrial denatured alcohol, which you can't drink. It won't kill you if you do drink it, but it's not very pleasant. And that's the major constituent component, and that's what you need the license to operate. Plus, you need risk assessments, method statements in place in order to handle it safely. Luckily, my wife's a health and safety consultant, NEBOSH qualified, so that was all covered for us. Your average chap in the street could definitely make it. You can buy the components from the likes of Amazon and eBay. However, if you want to distribute it throughout the care industry, then you have to be licensed in order to do so.
And how did you go about distributing it? Did you do something? Did you find a group? What was the way you found out who needed it and getting it out there?
Well, as I said, it was definitely care homes that struggled to get to it, and I got involved with an organisation called Bike Shed Community Response, which is been set up by Dutch and Vicky in London as part of their bike shed operation. And there are now 2,000 UK volunteers right across the country who will happily jump on a motorbike and get test results to places, deliver scrubs, deliver sanitizers, oximeters, whatever needs moving about by their local health authority or care organisations. And during the start of the lockdown, they were more than happy to do it because you couldn't leave home for anything other than essential. So the bike shed have given us all bibs, all retro reflective, marked up and the like, and stickers for the bikes and whatnot. So locally, I've been distributing, but we've utilised the BSCR volunteer network in order to get product right across the country. In fact, there's even a case of hand sanitizer gone to a care home in Shetland.
How come all this extra distilling and people using alcohol in hand sanitizer hasn't seen a massive reduction in the amount of gin out there, or has there been?
Well, initially, I think there was, because people didn't know whether they were going to have any money, and certainly the gins that we make, whilst they aren't massively expensive, they aren't massively cheap either. So we noticed that initial drop down in sales online because people didn't know whether they were going to have a job or any money. But as the furlough scheme came into being, then our online sales have rocketed because people don't necessarily have to get up and drive for work the next day. So they appear to be drinking a bit more gin at home, which is fantastic for us.
Mick, thank you so much for joining us. Really good work you're doing up there. And thanks for explaining the whole process and what you've been through to get your hand sanitizer out there into the care home community.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark. We've really enjoyed the process, and anything we can do to help, just let us know.